Hello, my name is Paul Cefalu and I'm the author of AppCreator Pro, an iPhone application that is available on the Apple App Store today. So, AppCreator Pro is a programming language that is designed for the novice. It's completely contained on the iPhone. You don't need a Mac, you don't need a PC. Everything you need is provided for you on the iPhone. You write your programs on the iPhone. So, this is a introduction video describing the layout of AppCreator Pro. So it's to give the users an idea of how things are related to each other. Exactly what is a project? How is the project related to a function or a variable? What's a module? How does a form work with a view? What is a controller or widget? What's an event? Hopefully, this layout introduction will make it clear on how the components all work together and how they're related. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to describe exactly some details about AppCreator Pro. Then I'm going to give you an overview of the entire system. We'll talk about variables and functions, then we'll move to widgets, the views, forms, events, modules, and how the variables and functions are related to the modules. So, what is AppCreator? AppCreator is an iPhone application that creates iPhone applications without the use of a Mac or PC computer. All development is performed on the iPhone. AppCreator can generate simple to moderate complex iPhone applications. AppCreator makes it easy for anyone who is not a software engineer to create impressive iPhone applications. The development process has been designed for the novice. If you are familiar with solving problems, then AppCreator will make your iPhone an extension of your imagination. So this is an overview of AppCreator Pro. You'll see that there's the project at the top, and the project is like a 3-ring binder. It has all the pockets and tabs that contain all the information about the application, and everything is in one place. So you'll see that there are 2 major components, forms and modules, and everything else is all part of the forms that you see, widgets, views, and so forth. Now, a module can have only functions and variables because it is a non-GUI component. So if you have functions that do particular tasks that are not specific to any particular form or any widget or view or so forth, then the modules is the perfect place to put it. So now we have the forms. The form is the visual GUI, so it contains views and widgets. Now, within the widget, a widget is a control, what's usually known as a GUI control. And that would be a text box, a label, a panel, a push button, a switch, and so forth. Now, widgets can have functions, variables, and events. So views can also have functions, variables, and events. And they can also have widgets along with the functions, variables, and events. Now, forms can have views, they can also have widgets, and they can also have functions, variables, and events. And those widgets can have functions, variables, and events. So as you can see by the diagram, things are nested and they're grouped together. And there's a reason for that. It has to do with organization, a term that's known as encapsulation, and it makes things very cohesive. We'll describe each of the components during this video, and then we'll return back to the overview and we'll see how it all fits together. Variables and functions. Variables and functions are incorporated in all the components of AppCreator Pro. You'll find functions and variables in modules, forms, widgets, and views. And so A widget. A widget has the functions, variables, and it also has events. And they're self-contained in the widget, as you can see. Now notice a view it can also have functions, variables, and events. But a view also has widgets. It could have widgets. You notice that the widgets can have functions, variables, and events, but those widgets have their own functions, variables, and events that are independent of the functions, variables, and events of the views. Now, why would someone do this? Well, the concept is known as encapsulation. So if you have functions or variables that are associated with that particular widget, and you wanted to use that widget elsewhere, but you didn't want to have to worry about knowing what functions to take with you or what variables to copy and so forth. So you make those functions and variables part of the widget. Then you would publish the widget to your user library, and then you could use that widget anywhere in any other project that you create with AppCreator Pro. So it's a way of keeping things together as a group, as a package. And same thing with the views. Now, you may have a view that may have a series of widgets on it, a couple of labels, a couple of text boxes, a few switches, and you want to keep those together. And you have functions and variables that are associated with the view, and those functions and variables may extract information from the widgets and interact with the variables of the widget. But again, as you can see, it is a form of encapsulation. So it makes things a package. You can also publish views into your user library and reuse those views later on in any other project that you create with AppCreator Pro. Forms. Forms are a little bit more complicated than views or widgets. Now, the form is the main display component. As you can see off to the right, forms can have functions, variables, and events. Forms can also have widgets, as you see in the middle there. Now, again, it's encapsulated. And a form can also have views. So you can see that the view has a widget. That widget has its own functions and variables and events. The view itself has its own function, variables, events. And the form has its own functions and variables, events that are independent of the view's functions, variables, and events. And the widgets that are part of the form are independent of the views. So you can see how everything is nicely grouped as packages and can easily be interchanged without having to worry about, did I use this function? Didn't I use this function? And so forth. Events. The only items that can have events are controls, views, and forms. Okay, a module can't have events, a function can't have events, variables can't have events. And events are special routines that are executed when a person presses a button or touches a text box or turns on a switch, swipes the screen, taps the screen, double tap, typical gestures, touch gestures to perform actions. You'll also notice that forms can have events all by themselves, views can have events all by themselves, widgets can have events all by themselves. Views can have widgets. Those widgets can have their own events, and those events are independent of the events of the form. Again, they're all grouped and encapsulated. So now we look at the forms, and you'll see the forms has views, and it also has widgets, and it also has its own events. And the widgets have its own events, and the view has its own events. So it's a very powerful tool to use this encapsulation, and it gives the author of the program a tremendous amount of control over the entire system. So modules, as you can see, the only thing you put in modules are functions and variables. They don't have events, they don't have any GUI component. Typically, modules will be used for general purpose functions and variables that can be used by any widget, any view, any form, any project. So now we're back at the overview. As you can see, it doesn't look as intimidating as it did the first time, once you know how the components all work and how they're related to each other. Okay, AppCreator Pro is very flexible, and it's actually very powerful. And it all depends on how, it's up to your imagination and how creative you could be. There's nothing holding you back. And we're constantly adding new components, new features to AppCreator Pro, and they're available to you free with normal upgrade that you get through the App Store. All right, so that's the end of the tutorial, and I hope it's been informative and it cleared up some issues about how things are all related in AppCreator Pro. Because typically when you work with an iPhone, it's a pretty small device and the interface is pretty small. So it's hard to really know what's going on under the covers and how things are related to each other. And hopefully this tutorial on the layout will make things clearer. All right? Okay, well, thank you. And I'll see you soon in other videos.